Shai Kunyiha. I am the Chief Executive Officer of CKL Africa. Although the panel says I'm the Chairman of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, I am indeed the former Chairman, the immediate past Chairman of the association. And CKL Africa, the business I'm in, is in agricultural inputs. We've been in Kenya since 1906, so it's a pretty old business in that area, focusing a lot of on dairy and crop protection. I'm also on the board of the Kenya Private Sector Association, and that's why we are here today moderating. So the panel session, we wanted it to be as interactive as possible. So we've tried to avoid many presentations and so on of different companies and what they're doing. But we will give each of the panelists a few minutes to tell us about their business, what they're doing, and you'll find it's quite a diverse spread of inputs or areas in agriculture.
Almut?
He's been in the same circles through public sector and so on. He's also a competitor of ours. He runs a business called Elgon Kenya Limited, which has got even older roots in Kenya. From 1898 is when they started around here. And they do a lot of inputs in crop and as well as other businesses in Kenya. Bimal is also the head of ASNET, and he'll be telling us a little bit more about that, which is the Agricultural Sector Network, bringing together BMOs, business membership organizations, in the agricultural sector so they can have a single voice for government.
Sebastian Alix is the production operations lead for the EMEA region at HM Close. Sebastian has been a director at HM Close Kenya since its establishment in 2014. He is an agricultural expert based in Kenya for many, many years, managing several horticultural businesses in Kenya over this period, and recently the vegetable seed business across East Africa. So a wealth of regional experience, and he also provides advice to the French foreign trade advisors in Africa. So we're looking forward to hearing your insights, Sebastian.
Yeah. We also have with us Luca Alinovi, who comes to us today from Farmshine Limited and Alpha Zero Limited, but he has a long, long history in agriculture sector. I think he's worked for almost every organization in agriculture. You see the Rockefeller Foundation, USAID, CIDA, Zurich Insurance, and also FAO, where he was the country representative for Kenya. I think he'll tell us a little bit more about his two businesses, FarmShine, that deals with value chains, and AlphaZero, which is around alpha toxin, dealing in the alpha toxin space. Welcome, Luca.
And last but not least, let me introduce Dr. Adam Tsoke, who is the Director of Sales Strategy for Africa with Rokosan. And Rokosan is a Slovakian organic fertilizer producer. And Adam has worked with Rokosan for more than 6 years. Over this period, he has worked in many different markets. He's built a very strong network of distributors and partnerships. He also holds a doctorate in international relations, which he feels has really influenced how he does business on the continent. So thank you for joining us today. So a really, really experienced and diverse panel we're going to hear from, and we're looking forward to hearing their insights. But we might start with a couple of words from the ministry.
We'll hear from Engineer Kiplagat. It's actually unique to have an engineer in the Ministry of Agriculture. But he'll tell us a little bit about that. And who will give us maybe some, I guess it was the welcoming remarks. He's got some remarks from the PS, just setting the scene for us around what's going on in agriculture at the moment and where the opportunities are. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. My name is Engineer Laban Kiplagat. I'm from the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm pleased to be here. Our PS could have been here, but he was held up by some urgent matter, so he asked me to represent him here, and I believe we will transact business well. So just briefly, I think you have heard from one of our colleagues here about the role of agriculture in Kenya. But just to add to it is that it continues to be the key economic and social driver of development in Kenya. It contributes over 22%, 22.4% of the overall GDP as of 2021, food and nutrition security, income generation, employment creation, and export earnings. Agriculture has direct linkage with other sectors such as agro-based manufacturing, transport, wholesale, and retail. The sector contributes also to attainable of various sustainable development goals. The mandate of the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development is to promote competitive agriculture for sustainable food production, employment, and income generation. However, the sector faces challenges in its aspiration to commercialize agriculture. These include declining agricultural land due to combination of factors, including uncontrolled subdivision, inappropriate land use, and effects of climate change. 2 is high cost of agricultural inputs, that's fertilizer, seeds, and machinery. High post-harvest losses arising from inadequate technologies for product development, storage, and high energy costs for cooling and processing facilities. Over-reliance in rain-fed agriculture, which is contributing about 98% of agriculture in Kenya. Rain-fed agriculture is relied 98%. The other challenge is inadequate access to financial and insurance services, limited product diversification, low youth participation in agriculture, and changing consumer preference. The government, through the Agricultural Transformation and Inclusive Growth Plan 2023-2027, has prioritized agriculture as a key pillar for development. Specifically, the plan targets to raise productivity of key food value chains, reduce dependency of basic food imports by a minimum of 30%, revamp underperforming and collapsed export crops while expanding emerging ones, that's coffee, cashew nuts, pyrethrum, avocado, and macadamia, and then boost the tea value chain through blending and branding, strengthen capacity through establishment of micro, small, and medium enterprises, stroke business development centers in every ward, and enhance access to finance, and lastly is to deploy modern agricultural risk management instruments that ensure farming is profitable and income is predictable. So those are the challenges that we do face, and in Kenya as a sector. And the opportunities that we think can be available include organic food growing. We realize that the health concern of most of us is coming with the demand for organic foods. So the opportunity includes growing demand for organic food. The other opportunity is technology transfer, which can include production technologies, post-harvest technologies, handling technologies, precision agriculture, and business development services such as cold storage facilities, finance, insurance services, and digitization. The other opportunity is quality assurance, and we realize that many of the exporters still rely on laboratories outside Africa for test and certification. The other opportunity is that we need to expand the export volumes of coffee and tea subsectors through specialty tea and coffee product diversification, and of course a myriad of other horticulture opportunities that include nursery and seed multiplication. So we do have quite a number of opportunities, and maybe just one that maybe might also interest us is that we have one that we are calling land commercialization initiative, where the private sector is invited to partner with the Kenyan farmers, and more specifically to utilize government land to grow crops, food crops and export crops, and also agro-processing. Agro-processing is a sector that we still find it as an opportunity. So I believe that that sets stage for how we are and how ready we are to partner with businessmen and investors as far as moving agriculture to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Engineer. I think that's a good picture of all the issues that we are facing, plus the opportunities. And we will come back to you later with a couple of questions. So next we have Dr. Bimal Kantaria to give us basically a brief introduction of Elgon, and also, I suppose, ASNET itself. Yeah, thank you.
So, what pays my bills is Elgon Kenya. So I'm fourth generation in my company. My company started in 1898. It's a very old company. Obviously, we're Indian by family, by history, but no more family left in India. So we're fully ingrained in this country. Mm-hmm. We do agriculture, fertilizers, chemicals. We make packaging materials for agriculture sector. To give you an example of one of my products is we had Valentine's last week, and I'm sure a lot of you gave roses and a lot of you received roses. You don't look like you're convinced. I hope you got roses. But if you did get roses, the packaging, the flower, the plastic that it came in, most of it is made in my factory. Yeah. So 90% of the flowers that are exported from this country use packaging that I make. The plastic sleeve or the label, we now can make a Marks & Spencer's packaging here, or Sainsbury's or Aldi, or any of the European supermarket packaging we make here. The flowers are packed here and exported. We also do fertilizers. We do, although we trade fertilizers, the big ones, commodities like urea and DAP, we also have a blending factory now. There's 9 new factories in Kenya, and Mushai, one of the questions is opportunities, and we've all stepped into the fertilizer blending factory, so we make customized fertilizer in this country. Over the last 12 months, there's been serious amount of investment into fertilizer manufacturing, which is one of the things that we do as a company. On my pastime, I do something called the Agriculture Sector Network. It should have been a pastime, but now it's become really a full-time job of mine, and I represent private sector agriculture in this country, and we have 25 value chains, coffee, tea, floriculture, horticulture, that we represent at government level. We have something like 150 business membership organizations who are part of ASNET. So any part of the value chain of agriculture, we represent them at government level, including development agencies. So it's become a full-time job for me, unpaid full-time job. So if you guys need any help on consultancy, I'm willing to take it. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Bimal.
And on the fertilizer, we'll move very swiftly along to Adam. And if you could just give us a little bit of insight into what brought you to Kenya, why you decided that the opportunity was here, that would be great.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adam Söke, and I'm from company Rokosan. So we are dealing with the production of organic fertilizers in liquid form by processing of animal waste, such as poultry feathers, hooves and horns, sheep wool, and other animal remains. And our products are very unique because in the end we are offering liquid products which are on par with efficiency with the traditional fertilizers while keeping the costs reasonable. We came to Africa because we saw the light in the end of the tunnel, because we see that this continent needs a lot of food. And the demand cannot be met only by chemical fertilizers, but we need to find a sustainable way on how to continue with the agro-processing and agriculture in general. So this is why we are here to offer our self-sufficient solution for Kenya and other countries, because every country has an abundance of animal waste, which is not treated well. We can produce fertilizer from it, and our technology is currently based in Slovakia, Europe, but we are working with many countries in the European Union, also in Asia, Latin America, but most importantly in Africa. We are working in Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, Cameroon, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt. But for us, Ghana and Kenya are very important markets. So in Kenya, we are currently certified with our products. We have our strategic partner here who already imported and is selling the products. Our market approach was to find a strong local partners to establish our distribution line and also to make farmers assured that the product works really well. Because I think the thing is believing, and when you are bringing something innovative, it really needs a change of mindset of the farmers. Switching from granular to liquid fertilizer may be daunting, but what I can offer is that we are not bringing the competition to the chemical factories, we are bringing the addition to everybody's business, and we can open new business opportunities for everybody.
That's super, thank you. And we'll move on to Almut at eProd. We did have a presentation, sorry, I'm not sure what's happening.
That's fine. So good afternoon, my name is Almut Van Kasteren, and I would like to take you back 18 years. I can't take you back to 1898 or whatever. So I'm first generation, not even first generation. I arrived in Kenya 18 years back together with my husband and a friend. So our intention was then to set up an export business, exporting spices that we grow with an outgrower scheme, basically to Europe. So we knew that we wanted to work with thousands of farmers, and we knew that we needed a system to manage these thousands of farmers. So we looked around to search for a tool that helps us to manage farmer registration, contract farming, field registration, input management, and the whole loan cycle. Then, because it's export, you need to be certified, so implementing surveys. Then you buy from farmers, you need traceable systems, you need to pay 8,000 farmers at the end for weekly deliveries, manage quality, manage communication, trainings, etc. So there was nothing there, so we decided to develop it ourselves in-house. And over the years, we have developed a very comprehensive platforms for ourselves. Now in 2015, we got visitors from an NGO because they wanted to see how we managed our internal reporting. They came and saw that we had historic information from all our farmers from the moment we started. And they asked us to basically pilot this software with 5 different off-takers that all wanted to buy then our platform. So this was a new business for us, completely different from being an agribusiness and exporter now to being a software provider, right? Ultimately, it was really implementing a system where you can structure unstructured markets, providing a software now to companies to help manage them, basically their farmer base, providing services to the farmers in terms of financing, inputs, information, and also market certainty. Now, what do? The first company, the agribusiness, we sold it in the meantime. We focus on software. We work now with over 200 companies in 20 different countries and provide them with a supply chain management ERP. Our clients are agribusinesses, so exporters, traders, food processors, cooperatives that simply need a platform to manage thousands of farmers or hundreds of farmers. And we provide them with an affordable tool that comes off the shelf. It's sector agnostic, so we have over 30 different sectors in our platform. And and I think what is important still is we are a software company, but going forward, you need to be able to connect with a lot of different platforms. So interoperability at the moment is very sexy. You need to be able to connect. So whether this is for meeting the requirements for international supply chains in the coffee sector or tea sector or spices sector or wherever, whether you need to connect with financial institutions and financial systems through APIs, or there's one more. Yes, exactly. And then what we also do is now we integrated polygons and for the field registration. And this is now data on the ground data that we share with third parties for carbon monitoring and carbon offsetting. So a lot of different tools that you can connect to our platform to ultimately improve the agriculture sector.
Thank you. It's really interesting. Obviously, a market-led innovation, but we'll get into that kind of transformation and change management and change in mindset a bit later. Luca.
Okay. I have to admit that I spent a lot of years in agriculture. Musha, you're right, very right. And a lot of them in Kenya. I spent a lot of years in Kenya. I was privileged to serve as the country rep of FAO. I've been spending a lot of years. Unfortunately, I was successful. So that thing obliged me to a difficult decision. Either get promoted back to Rome or resign and stay in Kenya, which I did. I did resign to stay in Kenya and to continue something that I never felt was solved, which is simply why smallholder seems for the general public, for the specialized public, seems not to work. And indeed, in my experience, in 30 years across Africa, in Kenya particularly, I never found a single smallholder which I would categorize stupid, incompetent, ignorant. And I spend, even today, between 70–80% of my time with smallholder. You find me very rarely in Nairobi because I'm always somewhere in the field talking with my clients. My clients are many more, much less rich, are around 20,000 farmers which work with us, and they sell well. You heard about drought in this period, right? Last group of my farmers working with us, which we sold their produce up to 4 weeks ago, made in 63 days 133% of markup on what they invested. So it's a pretty good deal. I mean, I think doing agriculture, smallholder, doing green gram, doing cowpea, doing kunde. When I say people, I'm always asking people, make kunde, which is cowpea. They always say, but this is for home, for eating at home, for eating the leaves at home. And they are not realizing that if produced kunde, they made more than 133% of markup. So the logic was how you organize this completely disorganized system, how make it functioning, how you create the condition for which you create the opportunity of markup for the farmer, and a company like mine makes enough profit to be happy. And that's where we simplify the system, and we find very useful to develop a lot of technology, a bit like you've been doing, but also creating this interconnect, which is very complicated, between sociological dimension, technical agriculture dimension, and technology. Because these three things, if they don't work together, they will never flow. It's not just a technological issue, it's not just an agriculture issue, it's not just a sociological issue. But if you want to disintermediate, the farmer has to be convinced that that process will not put him at risk, will have a better chance for his future, and he can grow. So all the farmers that started with us 3 years ago this year and been working for us 3 years consequently and been successful, they start a process where we are going to increment the income of 200% a year. And it's designed in a way to be possible. And we do that doing business. Because for us, a smallholder is a great entrepreneur in a very constrained environment. And the guy needs to take out those constraints to make sure that he can make money. Because any farmer that is not working with us, or not in conditions similar to us, if they increase their productivity, their unit price goes down. Because the local middleman can only pay a certain amount. So if that amount is designed to buy 100 kg, if he makes 200 kg, the unit price becomes half, because the money are the same. So they cannot grow. With us, we pay the same amount, whatever quantity the guy produces. We help them to design in a way in which the cost of production decreases. Sorry for you guys, I know that you want to sell inputs, but we have incredible tricks without inputs in which they make money in certain production. In other, not. So we create the condition for which the farmer is really at the center of the business, and the buyer at the end is at the center of the same business. Because the problem of the buyer at the end is how can I get 500 tons of that product? How can I get 1,000 tons of the same quality? So production, chain of custody, control, supply chain, and management of the farmer production mechanism has to be all integrated in a way which is feasible and viable. And that's what we do inside FarmShine. We have a trading company, which is one of our subsidiaries, which is called Grain Connect, which does all the trade bit. And on the upper stream, we manage all the technology and data analytics. So we have an interesting algorithm. I just finished on that one because it's fun. We have an interesting algorithm to understand when they're cheating us during buying and selling between farmer and our team. And we had to develop 60 variables of the most range to understand if the person is cheating or not before allowing the M-Pesa transfer happening. And they're very strange, like geographic position, time during the day, credibility of the farmer. Otherwise, you cannot do far-away trading and functioning. And since we are doing this algorithm, they stopped to cheat us, which they did very well before, I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting, Luca. I think you also demonstrate one of the risks the CS mentioned earlier. Some people come here and they never go back. Right? He left his passport a long time ago. So thank you very much. I think then finally, before we go to the question session, we also have Sebastian from HM Claus.
Good afternoon. So I've been in Eastern Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. And today I work for HM Claus. So with HM Claus is part of the Lima Grand Group. Lima is plowing for the Swahili crowd, okay, Swahili crowd here. And Lima Grand Group is a French cooperative. So it's more than 1,200 farmers, which are today owner of a business which is in more than 50 countries. A group which is a leader in field crop seeds, but also vegetable seeds, and HM Claus in one of those companies of the group. The group is doing everything from the seeds up to the final product, up to the bread. And for those who don't know, it's very inspiring companies. And I know in this country there were a lot of cooperatives in the past. So it's maybe an axe to investigate again. What we can say is HM Claus invested in Kenya in 2014 to do seed production, 200 kilometers north of Nairobi in Nanyuki. And it's a very unique business because vegetable seeds is very precise. There is very few companies in Africa who are doing vegetable seed production. Historically, vegetable seed production have been done in Asia, in South America, and partly in Europe. And for us, as HM Claus, it was key to come to Africa, and it was able to diversify our seed production area. it has not been an easy journey, because when you start in a country which you don't know for the group, and in a country where there were very little vegetable seed knowledge, so we had to find the right area where to produce. So we thought Nanyuki will be a good area, and also train all our staff to that specific. So we bring the know-how, and today we are proud to have a fully fledged team which is 100% run by Kenyans, and it's employing more than 150 people in Nanyuki. After the success of our home farm in Nanyuki, we decided to start expanding with grower partners, which we have in different counties in Kenya, and small-scale farmers also. And every time is to bring that know-how, and today, indirectly, we employ more than 300 people. 100% of what is produced here is being exported, and then with the support of KEFIS, we're able to get our seeds out and all the laboratory which are around. Yes. Just before we get to the other question, is why we came here is, for the climate, also for the people in Kenya, why we came here, very always with a high integrity, but also all the structural place which are in place, which help us, especially in the side of import-export. Yes.
That's great. Thank you all very much for providing a very comprehensive yet succinct introduction to your activities. So let's jump right into our first area around the opportunities that you see. We might direct the first question to the Ministry. So there has been a recent launch of soil mapping exercises to allow for customization of fertilizer blends. So last month there was, the Ministry spoke about utilizing the data from this soil mapping to identify what nutrients are missing from the soil, and then providing farmers with customized fertilizer to address those issues. Really tailored response to the soil challenge. Are there any more such initiatives on the cards?
Thank you very much. We all appreciate that Kenya is a diverse country. It has different geographical areas, which is also characterized by different soil types. And the government has, for a long time, been relying on fertilizer wholesomely. But as you said, it is true that there was a meeting that was held to address the issue of declining productivity, which is attributed to soil-borne issues, among it the nutrient content. So what came out is that there is need to review the overall soil types for the whole agricultural area in the country, so that once that comes, then a decision can be made on how best to approach this as far as formulating, blending, manufacturing is concerned. So as we speak now, there's a team that already is working out on that, gathering and verifying the existing samples and any other information, so that the whole country is zoned well, and at that, it will now provide the true picture of any intervention that shall be put forward. So that's the position as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we've had interesting input from these guys, and I'll start with Bimal. My question for you, Bimal. And you've got a good view of the whole agricultural sector. We're trying to see where the positives are. Where do you see the big opportunities are across the whole value chain for agriculture? We're talking about people who are looking at investing and so on. Where are the new opportunities which private sector can take, and where government may or may not need to give us some input? Your thoughts?
So agriculture obviously is livestock and crops as well. So we can look at both. You won't believe one of the biggest exports Kenya has is camels. We export shiploads of camels to the Middle East. In fact, now recently there's been actually a ship that's just made to export our camels across the sea. It's done by pastoralists. It's not a very organized sector. There's now a Kenya Camel Association, which is now trying to get the whole thing organized. But there is a big need for meat processing, so abattoirs, that sort of stuff. There's a massive demand for that. At the moment, most of our meat that we cut is done, the animal isn't killed properly, whatever, the whole process is not very professional. So there's a whole bunch of work done around bringing in investors into professionalizing that whole sector. So Kenya Meat Commission is a good example, how why the military took it over was just to professionalize and we get safe meat coming out. But that's a very big sector. Livestock has become a big area, the potential investment. Of course, the downside is, because of the lack of rains and the drought, we've lost several, it's quite a difficult sector for keeping animals alive. But on a general, if the weather was conducive, then livestock is a very profitable business in this country, especially added value meat processing. The second big one, of course, is crops. Crops is, I know a lot of my friends, colleagues around the table look at small scale agriculture. It's really the difficult part. Like my friends are here saying, Luca is saying he's spending 70% of his time on the ground. It's really difficult because there's 2 million farmers and it's quite a disorganized sector, meaning there's no, you have to go farm by farm. But at the top level, agriculture in this country is extremely sophisticated. It's probably world class. If you see some of our flower farms or horticulture farms, and I know my friend Vegpro is sitting in the room, if you go to some of these big farms, they're so sophisticated you can't beat them anywhere in the world, the level of technology. So that's, again, a huge sector that is really ripe for potential investment. But then I look at other sectors like sugar, for instance. Mushai, in the last 5 years, sugar has become a liberalized sector. So anybody can go and invest in sugar. In the last 1 year alone, every single sugar factory in this country has doubled its capacity. And we're still having to import sugar. If you see some of the mills that we have, I went to see Kwale Sugar a few weeks ago. It is phenomenal, the amount of investments gone into that factory. The technology has gone into it, and there's still massive room. We're still importing sugar, so sugar is a big one. Any value-added stuff in crops is potential. Packaging, fertilizer is a business that I'm in. But as I said, we put 9 new factories in Kenya in the last 12 months. Again, massive value add. And somebody talked this morning about value add in tea and coffee. Huge potential. We're still exporting 95% of our tea and coffee as raw produce to Europe. And there's a big drive by government, the ministry itself, engineer sitting next to you. There's a big drive to encourage more value addition in this country, where the profit is. If you're looking at the bottom line, we're making 10% by selling raw produce, and big companies abroad are processing that tea and coffee and making 90% of the profit. So any of that stuff will make you money in this country, and value addition is really where the focus should be in this country. Thank you.
Very, very insightful. And what would you? How can government support the scaling up of industry in Kenya? So to move from the smallholders to inform people of the opportunity, how would you recommend?
To be fair, Kenya government is actually very good. The Kenya government, Ministry of Agriculture, and the other ministries, I don't know what your experience is, but my own experience in Mushai at KEPSA level, they really work quite closely with private sector. The communication channels between us and government is incredibly open. I don't think anywhere in Africa is this close we are to government. So they listen to us. And there's a lot of initiatives going on with value-added agriculture. And companies like Twiga Foods and these kind of big organizations are trying to bridge the gap. But again, I'm trying to resist the temptation of looking at small-scale farming, because if you look at investors across the room here, when you're looking at bringing in large chunks of capital into a formal sector, then I think you've got to look at big-scale agriculture. If you look at the cereal sector, we still have so much land available. My friend there at the ministry is now looking to allocate 500,000 acres which is sitting in government hands. They want to now give long-term leases to private sector companies to do long-term agriculture in it. So the government is doing a lot of work in terms of the sector, but it's really bringing in foreign investors like we have across the room, who are bringing in large sections of capital, and there's room for that in this country, and that's my point. We can do small scale, but to move that into a large economic model takes time, and you need boots on the ground and stuff, and lots of people are doing it, including my company. I employ something like 100 agronomists full-time. It's hard work. But when you want to bring in overseas capital, you've got to look at chunks of sectors where you can make money quite quickly, and that's still available in this country. And some of the sectors I mentioned are still ripe for large-scale investment, which is really, I think, what we need to focus on when you have serious people in the room.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's that communication, and it just sounds really positive, and that's how the ecosystem works when all of the actors are communicating. Just in that line, Sebastian, you mentioned the strength of your Kenyan team, and your operation here is entirely run by Kenyan management team. What are the factors that make that work when it's a foreign company being locally run? What are the key elements that make it a success?
Seeing the key part we made the success, I think, outside vegetable seeds, but also all the horticultural sectors. Agriculture sector or export sector started in the late 70s in Kenya, and there is very strong school, also in university, all over the countries. And it's something also Kenya need to continue also to bring all that young generation on the international space, and have it has a very strong base already. That's why we were able to go as quick with team learning very quickly. But now it's to bring the know-how also of the strong university and having more partnership. Already there is a partnership between France and Kenya and exchanges with some very strong university also. But I think it's continue on that base. I think when you are in investors, you cannot bring a full-fledged of employees from overseas. So you really need to work with strong local team is what make your business sustainable, and also you're able to perennize it in the long term. All the investment in agriculture, it's long-term investment, long-term return with very strong asset being put in place. So this was part of the success. And after, on the other side, it's everything, integrity, cultural values, and respect. And now it's going step by step, recognizing success also. And in agriculture, there is also failures. We know climate change is there. There is always part of unknown. But it's recognizing success and recognizing overseas team and local team as a global team. And that's it. It's what makes the success at the end. Yeah.
Maybe you could tell us also a little bit about the contract growers and how that has grown, because that sounded unique in your ability to get pretty high-tech product from contract growers. How did that?
I think, contract growers is huge opportunities, but also a challenge today. Government is working on it very much, but it's access to infrastructure in some areas, access to water, which is key, and we know the government is working on it, but today there need to be a basic minimum in infrastructure, and after we can bring the know-how, all the knowledge, we can bring the market. I think also a lot of companies here in this room can bring the market, because where we are strong, bring some know-how, but it's really a partnership between the growers, between the local communities, and the private sector, and this needs a lot of perseverance and patience also. I think everybody there is not don't come here to make a quick win. It's really long-term investment, patience and perseverance, but it's possible to get international quality product out of Kenya.
Thank you. So, Adam, Thanks for the input on animal waste and Roko-san. I think in Africa, anyway, at least this part of Kenya, there is a lot of use of manure for, for soil and so on. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what is slightly different without maybe not getting too technical around it. And then we'd be wondering, from the Association of Manufacturing, when are we going to start manufacturing it here in Kenya? When will Roko-san start manufacturing?
So thank you very much. This is very much interesting question, because there is a big confusion in Africa in general in case of organic fertilizers, because usually people, when they hear that we are selling organic fertilizer, everybody think of manure, compost, and we always have a problem to describe that we are here not to offer the products which are really low in NPK content, but we have a products which are on a par with the chemical counterparts. But people, they always understand that organic fertilizer is just some granule or compost. So we are here to teach people the difference, because what we are bringing is the revolution in organic farming. We are bringing something unique from the animal waste, because animal waste is in abundance here. We are looking currently at the situation in agriculture where there is a push for decarbonization of nitrogen industry, but we need to feed people. So we need to find alternative sources of nitrogen, of potash, of phosphorus. And fortunately for us, our technology based on animal waste is based on a very high amount of NPK for organic fertilizers. So this is what's the main difference between us and the manure, is that you can use manure in your farm, but you usually need to mix it with NPK, DAB, and other fertilizers to receive the recommended yields. Our fertilizers can be used standalone. We will use soil nutrition, seed coating, and foliar fertilizer from our production line, and it will have the same effect as traditional fertilizers. But at the same time, if the farmer wants to use traditional fertilizers and he wants to enhance his production by our amino acid fertilizers, he is free to go. So this is the main difference, that our products can be standalone and they can provide the yields. So, regarding the question for the production starting in Kenya, currently we are in a phase where we received our certificates from KEFIS. Our products are certified here. We did a lot of demonstrations. Our products are being distributed. In first stage, we are going to build packaging plant here in Kenya. So we will bring the super concentrated product from Europe and mix it and pack it here in Kenya. While we will build our distribution network. So we are projecting to start the construction of the big factory maybe next year. But it's connected not only to one facility, but several facilities across Kenya, because we are looking to build collection points near almost every slaughterhouse or every major slaughterhouse. So we want to partner with the farmers and slaughterhouses and buy the raw material. So we are creating many important opportunities for people and even smallholder farmers. Because if people will see that they are able to grow animals and sell even the animal remains, they will be more motivated to buy more cattle, more poultry. So we are accelerating the whole cycle. And I really appreciate this panel here, because it's a very wide collection of the people from different industries, and I'm glad that we are complementing each other.
That's fantastic. It's great news, sorry, on the commitment and the investment in Kenya. Almut, so what opportunities, there's been much talk around technology as a tool rather than a threat, and I think that goes across many verticals. But what opportunities can new technology play in standardization, in food safety? Do you see that do you see technology playing a role in the enforcement of standards?
Yes. Of course, I will always say technology is cool. No, I think technology is important because you mentioned the export market earlier. You need to have fully traceable systems. You need to have food safe systems. if you look into the requirements of the EU in terms of pesticides, every day you hear like new chemicals are taken off the market, or the thresholds are so low that actually you cannot use these chemicals anymore. So you need to be able to track and trace and identify who has applied what. So if you, especially if you work with a large network of outgrowers, you need to have systems in place to be able to follow up and understand who has applied what. Or alternatively, if you, and that's probably the better option, is that you simply provide the farmers with an entire package, an input package, to avoid that they go somewhere outside buying chemicals that are not suitable for the export market or even for the local market. If you look into the Kenyan Standard 1758, which is very close to the Global Gap certification, it is a challenge to implement that. So what technology can do is you basically know who the farmers are, you record the fields, you can record and monitor what the farmers have applied, you can provide them with inputs, even give them as credit. You can train the farmers and you can prove that the farmers have been trained, and then at the moment of buying you can have a traceable system from the seed that has been used to the applications to the final product. And then if there's any issue at any given moment, you will be able to find out which farmer has produced which produce at which moment and identify the field and take out any produce somewhere from this field where the farmer has harvested from. So I think you need to have these systems to be able to ensure food safety. Otherwise you will not be able to.
Thanks for that. Just a query on the technology side, which has been, say even bothering us in our businesses, is that it seems easy to put technology at, say, the exporter level or the large company level. But what is the openness to, new digital technology at the farm level? So we see there's kind of a lot of investment in them, the digi-farms and all that, but it doesn't seem to quite take off like, say, M-Pesa. It's at a very different level how people are. What do you think some of the challenges are there, or opportunities?
So there are two things. The first one is, I don't really believe in an Amazon for the food market. I think I more believe in a market system approach, where you have a company on top of the food production that basically offsets from the farmers, that buys and is in control. I think if you have loose farmers in one area and the market somewhere else and they're supposed to meet, I don't really fully believe that that is a functioning model. And then technology. So if you go to the rural areas, most of the farmers still have feature phones, and even communicating with the farmers is a bit of a challenge. So the uptake at the farmer level themselves is still difficult. And I think as a company or as an organization, you need to work with the farmers that you have. You need to provide them with tools that they can apply. So that can be simply communicating through SMS to the farmers, providing them with production advice. It can be through a USSD system, allowing the farmers to sign up, to request inputs, to request assistance. That is a simple and very efficient tool that the farmers actually appreciate. And I don't think in general that farmers have a problem with technology. At the contrary, I think they like it. It's just a matter of making it working for them.
All right, thanks. I see, Luca, you're nodding along. And you're next, that's your question. How do we further exploit that opportunity for the smallholders using technology? I think it's not just the digital technology, but also the farming skills and so on, because it sounded like you had a lot of experience bringing them up.
So I think we have a lot of commonalities because we are playing in the same ground,
Yeah.
and in fact we are doing very similar stuff. All our bags are traced. We know everything about each one of our bags from the beginning to the end. It's complex, making system replicable, similar, functioning the same way, and at the same time working in an environment which is fully informal, totally based on handshaking, cash-based. So bringing the two things together is where the complexity is, and making it working. Because if you try to design it just as an ERP, the ERP function in yes/no model. In most of the farming system, you have yes, maybe tomorrow, today not, internet is off, rain comes, we cannot reach the place. So you have to have quite a bit of systems working interconnected. So
Yes.
SMS, in fact, USSD, other technology, which integrated very advanced technology,
Yeah.
and a lot of work in the back end of the system to allow the analytics, making the thing continually understanding and moving forward. It's a great, great, great magic, the use of artificial intelligence. We work a lot with that, and it's incredible the speed in which we learn things that we haven't thought about. So I think there is a lot of innovation which is needed, but at the same time, there is what you were saying before. There is a lot of substantial understanding of the rural environment, which we are missing. So let me give some kind of challenge to Bimal on some of his statements before. I'm coming from a country which is completely biased on smallholder. In Italy, the average size of a farm is 5 hectares. And in agriculture, we're not doing that bad. All of you guys are eating, drinking, and enjoying our food, which is made by smallholder, and giving us a lot of money. So consider that a Parmesan cheese producer, I'm coming from that area, so I'm totally biased by that. A Parmesan cheese producer in average has between 15, 20 hectares, 50 cows, and a Ferrari parked in the stable. Then you do your mathematics as you want. It's not just because Ferrari is produced 20 kilometers away from his stable, but simply because you can do your mathematics right. And what is missing in Kenya to go to that direction? So that will be my first advice. I'm totally biased by my Italian/European Union old origin, but it's the fact that here we are not smart enough, or we are not being focusing enough in getting decommoditized, except for coffee and tea, where we're doing very well, and I think we're doing very smart. Now, in decommoditizing a product, you can sell it at the price that you want. So imagine there is a small lentil in Italy, made in an area of 5 square kilometers, which is done very close to Christmas time. Now, for some strange reason, don't ask me, one of the Italian jujus says that if you eat lentils the last day of the year, you make money the next year. Nobody believes in jujus, but everybody eats lentils the last day of the year. And these guys sell those lentils at 20, 30 euro per kg. And just because it's that brand with that name, so the geographical branding in this country is possible from tomorrow. And nobody is really thinking how to do it. So my request to the European Union is help us in doing geographic branding. In the European Union, we are super strong in doing that. We know how to do it. Doing geographic branding of the famous red cowpea will make us immediately having the possibility of selling at the double or triple of the price. It's the same type of beans, of the red beans of the Japanese, but they're so good in giving a brand to the red beans in Japan, and we're not good in doing the red cowpea here. It's crazy. And the smallholder can make a lot of money out of it, can make substantial a lot of money. Obviously, it should be integrity, as it was said before, should be credibility, should be transparency, and their technology help a lot. Should be transparent mechanism of aggregation, of storage, of transport. It requires a lot of know-how. So I don't want to pass in any form the impression that talking a smallholder is some kind of romantic, fantasious idea. It's very, very down-to-the-earth business. It's very down-to-the-earth decision that can make changes for the majority of the Kenyans, because the majority of the Kenyans are in the rural area and are smallholder. So we're not talking about a theoretical argument. We're talking about massive volume. And the cost of production can be minimal. And the land available is a lot. In most of the Ukambani region, in Tana River, I can tell you, I can take you through counties, there are hundreds of thousands of acres that can be used and are not yet used. I'm sure that, we've been having a lot of discussion in the past with my friends at the ministry. There is a much better usage that can be done with a growth pathway that a smallholder can make to make money. Because we also have to stop to have this kind of romantic idea that with them we talk about charitable issue. And money we shouldn't mention. No, they want to make money. The first thing that the smallholder, rightly so, want to make money. So how we engage to make them making money, doing business as private sector, not as a charity. And that is where I think the focus should be in big terms.
Ideas. And that moves us nicely on to the next part of the conversation we wanted to look at is the challenges, because other than Nicola, I don't think anybody else has a Ferrari in their garage, right? And
Not
we want
me
to
as
get
well.
there.
Have the farm in the Parmesan area.
Yeah. We're all looking for Ferraris in our garages from agriculture, but we're not yet there. So there are challenges, and the conversation we want to have is around what are these challenges that we face, and how can we overcome them? What are some of the ways we're overcoming them, or some of the suggestions you have? You've given us a pretty good suggestion about like the geographic naming around products, etc. I don't know if you have maybe look at other challenges that you've seen in the agri-space, maybe just one or two that you see are big ones that need some sort of resolution.
I think it was mentioned before, and I think it's very important. I'm 100% in agreement with a lot of the control, and I work, by the way, wonderfully with CAFIS. I think CAFIS should be always praised because these guys are doing an incredible, difficult job, and are trying to do really, really well. So I don't think it's a Kenyan problem. I think it's more an European Union problem, in which either sometimes with an excess of control measure makes very difficult the export, unnecessary, and also in a very old-fashioned way of certification of those processes, it makes so expensive that for smallholder becomes very difficult. We are missing, sorry to my European Union friends, maybe also some relative, but you should spend some time with CAFIS. They are more advanced than most of the European Union certification bodies in terms of digitalization of processes. These guys in CAFIS have digitalized the full processes of hundreds of things, which go far much faster than in most of Europe. So I think we need to have European Union getting us in a way in which we can work in a much easier way in having credible certification, credible control, and credible processes in a way that looks at the year 2100, not the year 1700, because then it becomes very difficult to go and do the testing of all the soils 5 times a year and measuring the content of produce that we don't have in Kenya, etc., etc., etc. But instead, maybe using more advanced technology to make it faster. I mean, I'm using a digital probe from our soil testing of all my farmers. I'm able to test 300-400 farmers in a week, just probing their soil and having immediate information. It doesn't require magics. It requires just using a bit of innovation. And I think that will be very, very important, because otherwise the farmer will never reach the level of technology to be considered organic. Yet 70% of my farmers are doing organic because they have to do organic. They don't have alternatives.
Yeah, that's great. And I think this is the platform to raise alignment issues, certainly, and to help trade between Kenya and the EU. Just on, obviously we've talked a lot about people who are doing business, but for new entrants to the market, Adam, when you were looking at Kenya, how easy or difficult was it to do your market research from Slovakia, obviously, and you were looking at the East African region? How was the access to market information, and how did you gather it?
This is a very interesting question, because many companies want to come and invest to African countries, but it's always difficult to do it from your homeland. You can check all the data, even gathered from the government, from the NGOs, about the agriculture in the countries, but when you travel to the countries, you see the reality, you see the logistical chain, how does it work, and then you realize that the data written on the paper is not always the truth. So for us, as a main important thing was always to travel to the country and find a local partner who knows how to handle the situation, because in European Union, the rules are similar in every country. We follow one legislation in many areas, but here you come to Rwanda, there are different rules. You come to Tanzania, different rules, and then you come to Kenya, and again, it's different rules. So what do you need is first a local partner who knows how to do the things, and somebody who can pull you through the process of the certification, of getting all the licenses, because it's always the first test of your abilities when you are bringing the first shipment. Then you will see the real situation in the country. What kind of documents do you need? What are the challenges at the clearance and so on? My recommendation to any company entering the market is to find strong partners, because there are many local people who are looking forward for business opportunities. What we can do from European Union is to take our know-how, bring into the people, and let's make a good business together. Because I think knowledge transfer is important, because there are the resources, we have the know-how, let's make it happen together.
You could be a good politician.
Interesting. You sounded like when you started, you came, looked at Nyanyuki, you just got land. Most of us in Kenya know getting land is is not that easy. So how has it been on the land side, getting access to the land and other resources that you needed?
I think getting land anywhere in the country when we invest foreign countries, it's always a challenge. The laws are different, and especially in agriculture. If you know the business, you can have mixed use, there's different rules. And it's still a challenge for us today. I think as introduction engineer, you spoke then there will be maybe new changes or government land available. But when you want to start with a smaller structure and you put a long-term asset, which is there for 15, 20 years or more, you want to have a long-term lease. And it's very difficult for international companies, unless they found a very strong local partner or somebody they can really trust. But when you start in a new business, so maybe it's an act of work with the Ministry of Agriculture and Land. How can foreign company can have access to long-term lease, even if it's on smaller properties. Most of the time it's big chunk of land which might be available. So I think it's always an act of work as public and private sector. Yeah.
And back to Bimal. Just in terms of the challenges, obviously there's been huge improvement in infrastructure and road and in rail, which really helps obviously with the transportation of goods. What are the remaining challenges that need to be addressed?
So you're right. I mean, in the last 5 years, the government has invested massively in county government, central government infrastructure. It's part of the problem we're so heavily indebted, and so there's a problem with that, with the debt now. So I think in terms of infrastructure development, it's ongoing like any other nation. The good thing about Kenya is because devolution, a lot of money has been invested in county government, and you see roads all over the place which weren't there before. So infrastructure spending is going on, which is excellent. But there are definitely other issues. One is the land issue we talked about a few minutes ago. That's definitely a problem. And to counter that, government has come up with a digitization process, which is, as you heard in, I think, speech this morning, they're now rolling it out in all the county governments, in all the counties, which is going to be excellent. So hopefully this land issue over the next couple of years will resolve itself. But that's definitely a hindrance to agriculture. There's also a transition of people in this country. Youngsters don't want to get into agriculture. We all know that. I think most countries have the same problem. It's become, there's a thinking that it's an old man's game, agriculture, physical planting. So we're encouraging, and I know the government is doing the same thing. We're talking about the full value chain in agriculture. So we're telling youngsters, you don't have to go and do actual planting, but there's scope for you in IT, in marketing, in distribution. There's so many different platforms where you you can get involved as youngsters. And so last Friday, we launched the 4K clubs in schools. 4K clubs is to bring agriculture back in schools, and my company is spending a lot of money. We're now having 700 schools where we're going to work with Ministry of Agriculture. We're introducing agriculture clubs back in schools where we'll teach agriculture at different parts of the value chain. So bringing youngsters into agriculture is a big problem. And I know Luca will agree with that one. Of course, the biggest one is water resources. We're still heavily focused on rain-fed. So you heard the president's speech this morning. They're spending a lot of money on dams and stuff like that, but that takes time. So drip irrigation, micro-irrigation has become a big subject. So I know there's lots of companies that are now doing irrigation equipment, and same as my company, Elgin, we now manufacture drip pipes. But I think that's, again, it's going to take some time to convert a lot of this large-scale farming into irrigation or a sprinkler system, something to conserve water. But that is, in my opinion, the big constraints of agriculture growth in this country. Otherwise, this country is smart. We've got smart people. If you look at all over Africa, most of the big companies run in Africa run by Kenyans. I mean, really clever, smart people in this country we have. So I don't think it's a lack of skills. I think sometimes there's natural factors. We're growing as a nation. So we have those natural challenges which every country goes through. But the biggest thing we have in this country, biggest strength is the skills of this country, the skills of the people. And education is really great in this country. So lots of positives as well.
Absolutely. I love the positivity. I'm based in Johannesburg, and I can tell you the communication between private sector and government isn't so as positive as this room, certainly. But I think maybe that's an opportunity for the engineer to speak about the public-private partnerships and how they can address some of these outstanding challenges.
Thank you very much. I think issues have been raised, but I wanted to add some comment that had been alluded to by some of my colleagues, the panelists. Why is technology not picking up, like M-Pesa and so on? One of the challenges that we face as a ministry is low participation of the youth in agriculture. And youth are the people that are always techno-savvy. And if we target the youth into agriculture, then that's the growth of that sector. And currently the ministry is doing what it can to ensure that the youth are enticed into agriculture through some incentives and awareness creation. Two is that we are in the process. Over 80% of our farmers are small-scale farmers. And these small-scale farmers is what has been discussed here sometimes. They don't make volumes, scale, and so on. Extension is a problem. But the ministry, in collaboration with the Ministry of Cooperatives, is trying to bring these farmers together so that as cooperative, they should be able now to enhance the issue of contract farming. So those are some of the strategies that are in place. But that will not be enough. In this country, we have conservative estimates that we have got about 2.5 million acres of arable land that has not been put under production. And much of this land still lies in public institutions. It still lies in communal land, and also some farmers, private farmers that are not put in place. Of course, the private sector investment in agriculture has not been very encouraging, and I think it's because of the reasons that can be very well explained, that the conducive environment had not been there. So currently, the ministry, in collaboration with other actors, more specifically the GenInvest and the PPP Directorate in the Ministry of Finance and National Treasury, are putting in place measures to ensure that the private sector get access to this opportunity. Already the ministry has developed a land leasing framework that shall guide investors when it comes to leasing land. And I want to say here that in the land leasing framework, the proposed period is between 5 and 30 years. subject to renewal. So depending on the crop and so on, it will be adequate, because I think I've heard people saying that you need lease of more than 20 years for big investment. So that is a land leasing framework, 5 to 30 years, but it can still be added more. Because of the nature of land, the ministry has, in collaboration with other agencies of government, have said that we want to start with public land, land that the government owns and is not properly utilized. And so far, we've moved to some extent, and now we are waiting for investors to come on board. I think some have shown interest, others are showing interest, but we will, in due course, put all these land parcels in a digital land portal that can be able to attract potential investors. So yes, we are there. The environment is being made even more friendlier to the private sector so that they can start with public land, and we believe that as it grows, it will grow into private land and even communal land for the purpose of increasing production in this country. So that's where we are. Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, panelists, also for the answers. This is the time when we've got, and time has really run. We didn't know how long I would be able to get this going. We do have about 20 minutes left where we take questions from the audience. And just to guide us, since we only have about 20 minutes, please just introduce yourself briefly and let us know who you are asking the question to. Please do ask a question so that it's short, precise, and we can take as many questions as possible during this session. I think we have someone with a mic. Yeah, there's a mic there, and I see you, the first hand is up there.
Thank you very much. My name is Caleb Ngala, youth leader, Mathare Sub-County. Mathare is the second largest informal settlement in Kenya, and I'm glad to be here. I want to talk about specific on the issues of agri-business. As we all know, there is...
Are you...
Yes, I'm just asking the panelists because they have all talked about the issues of agriculture.
Okay.
So they can pick it and... Yes.
All right.
There is this issue of lack of employment. And the truth remains that there is no a place where the vacancies can be occurred to accommodate everyone. So we decided as youths to be job creators instead of job seekers. And the only market available is agriculture. What is the government and like-minded partners are doing to help youths who are interested to do agri-business? We have a space in Mathare, we have a space, we are doing those agri-business, but there is no one who is ready to, at least to hold our hands and to walk with us this journey. That is the only way we can do to reduce the use of drugs and substance use and crime in our informal settlement. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Other questions? Any other questions?
Hello, my name is Cheryl, working at the National Irrigation Authority. Now, the organization, it's a parastatal, and there's an issue of unpredictable rainfall affecting agriculture in this country. And as much as we are putting efforts to ensure that there's sustainability in agriculture in terms of availability of water, but you find that we are trying to look for these partners, but then we are not able to find the right ways of approaching this, especially in terms of implementing projects under PPP arrangements and co-finance. How do we go about ensuring that at the end of the day, investors get value for their money and also the public sector gets to benefit? Yeah, so that's my question.
Okay, thank you. One more question for the first round. We've got one here, or okay, we'll take two. Okay.
Marion, I'm asking on behalf of small-scale farmers. I recently planted crop and all of it was affected by lack of rain. and getting quotations to go into irrigation, you'll find the cost of a borehole plus implementing solar pumps, we go to around Kenya shillings 2.1 million. What's the European Union and the government doing to help local farmers to be able to finance this?
Okay, thanks. And here, we'll just take this one and we will come back to you. Start here. There was one here at the front. Here at the front. And we'll just answer those four and then we'll come back for the second round.
Good afternoon. My question is very simple. I'm asking the panelists, especially the European Union and the engineer from the government, if there is any program or any activity or any effort to have, there is a lot of training to farmer, but the training that I've never see, or at least we never appreciate the result, is cost analysis of production. Because we face the challenge that many small farmers, really, they don't know how much is their own cost. That one affect export, affect the approach to international market. I'm talking especially in particular about herbs. The herbs, in fact, the second is if you give me the address for the land, because we are going to do our own plantation of herbs, because we know the cost, but the cost available in the market is really without any analysis support. So that's why it's very difficult. We are talking export, fine, good. Market is there, fine and good. But really, there is a lack of knowledge in cost analysis from the small and medium farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Engineer, will I start with you to answer some of those questions? There was one about the Mathare youth engagement.
Yes, I don't want to say I'll answer all of them correctly, but let me try to have my thoughts on this, and my other colleagues, panelists will add. One was on issue of market. Yes, we appreciate that we've been concentrating more on production, but we've taken little time on how to market. So the ministry has taken note of this, and already we have launched what we are calling marketing strategy. This marketing strategy should be able to address how to bring and aggregate small-scale farmers, because sometimes the quantity, the production might be there, but the quantity is not enough to attract a big investor. Also, the quality sometimes can be an issue, and also the type of produce that is grown. So I think if I compare with, if I can connect with what my colleague has said, there'll be need to ensure that the farmers know exactly what they are growing and how much they will get of it. And we've been saying that farming should be taken as a business. That's our song as a ministry, as county government. But we are also targeting contract farming to offer a solution to some of this. And as I said, private sector are being invited to participate in land in Kenya. One of the benefits is that it will also be able to absorb some of the produce that the farmers are producing, and at the same time also able to tell the farmers what they would want. The other one is the inputs that go into agriculture. Yes, it is quite an issue, as it was alluded by the comments of the peers, but I think the ministry is trying to ensure that it subsidizes where it can, but where it cannot, we look for the alternatives. And I think there is conversation now on how to use other alternative inputs to agriculture. And as we do that, there is also a discussion on how, seeing the tax in agricultural inputs to the extent that where possible, they should be addressed. And more specifically, I think she talked about the solar equipment. The Ministry of Energy, I'm a member of the team that is there. We are trying to see a clean energy source for agriculture and how they can be made more affordable and available to the farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe then to Luca and Almut, between you there, the cost issue. There were two questions which went around costs, whether we are analyzing costs well enough to hit the market, or the challenges that small-scale farmers have in dealing with costs. Any response to that? Okay.
I can't answer the cost issue. I know that there are a lot of projects out there where you can actually apply for funding for boreholes, etc. I'm part of a big project at the coast where we are applying for funding for water harvesting equipment for the smallholder farmers. So this is the initial company that we had. And that's a World Bank funded project, and this is going to happen now. So I know there's funding out there. It's just you just need to do a bit of homework, talk to the local Ministry of Agriculture and understand what opportunities are around there. But I wanted to share something else in terms of drought resistance or climate change. I think there's a lot of movement around climate smart agriculture, and there are things that you can actually do. I just recently saw a map of Tanzania and the areas where you would be able to produce potatoes within Tanzania, and they just really mapped the areas and also identified what you need to put in to make sure that your crop is successful. So I think this is something that the world should look into, just really understand which crop is suitable for which areas, what are the drought-resistant crops. There are special seed varieties that are promoted, and I think these should simply be used. So there are a lot, And then simply what companies can do, and also international donor organizations support these climate-smart agriculture activities, share production advice. There's a lot of work also around the Center of Excellence that have developed crop monitoring models and also production advice based on the current climatic situation. So there are things that can be done. It's just a matter of making it more public, maybe also getting all these Center of Excellences more involved and more seen, and making sure that this information becomes available.
On the cost, it's a central part of, we do a lot of training with the farmers in our team. To keep our farmers on board, we invest a lot in dedicated training, which is, I think, pretty similar to the concept where the government is looking right now in terms of contract farming. We don't do contract farming, but we engage with the farmer on a training where the logic is how you make sure that you make the maximum possible amount of money from this production. And that is because if they make the maximum amount, we make the maximum amount. So it's not a love affair, it's a business affair, as I repeated a few times. And the cost is really a critical issue. It's very complicated because it's mixed with a lot of things and difficulties in making. So what was said before is true. I don't work in herbs, so I have no really specific advice on the herb side, but definitely is part of something which is important to focus. And maybe training need to be much more focused on the aspect of production which are functional to the market. Normally the way in which we deal with the smallholder is the smallholder produce whatever they want, and then they call someone and you bring them to the market. Doesn't work that way. If you don't engage with the market from day one, that thing will never get to the market. But I want to add one thing, because I think it was a very, very important question from the National Irrigation Authority. I think it's, and I've been working a lot in the area where they are present, and I think there are two issues which are very important. The first one, if you allow me, if the irrigation is done by FARO, is very inefficient. If you want to engage with investors which are interested in making money out of there, we have to do some reflection on what is the most efficient irrigation in the large scheme, and maybe need to do some discussion on there, because the shortage of water is dramatic compared to the shortage of land. In the sense that if you take a typical HOLA scheme, 20,000 acre potential, 7,500 dedicated, 3,500 irrigable, and end up normally to be irrigated maximum 2,000 acres. If you have the acre 2,000 number and one, you're out of business. So it's a very complex system if we don't optimize the water to get real investment in the business. And I think it's essential because it has been mentioned by Bimal before, it has been mentioned right now, we have to deal with the climate change in a dramatically important way. And irrigation is central to that process to to make sure that we don't go short of food in this country. Otherwise, we talk about theories. We don't talk about practice. Practice is that this country has the potential to produce the food that is needed, actually more. It has the potential to export, but to export even grains, even cereals, even rice. I mean, has the potential for very large export. At the same time, it's not doing it because it's constrained by conditions that need to be addressed. And we have the capacity in the country. I can't agree with you more, Bimal. We have the capacity in this country to do it. So it's not a lack of capacity, but we have to make all the difficult decisions that are needed.
Thank you. Yep, you had something to add, Adam?
Yes, I would like to answer the question of the gentleman from the back regarding the employment opportunities, because as we said, we are planning to invest in Kenya, and we are going to give 3 opportunities in employment. One is the collection of the raw material from the slaughterhouses. Then another opportunity is that we will organize teams which will apply fertilizers for us, because most of the farmers will not be able to apply themselves. So we want to train agronomists and people who will come to your farm and spray the fertilizers either by backpack sprayers or by machinery or by drones. So this is another employment opportunity. And third opportunity we are giving to the farmer is to switch to organic farming and make maybe 10 times more by producing organic crops in comparison to the traditional grown ones. So what we are giving is not just a product, we are giving an opportunity for everybody to choose the way they want to live their lives. Regarding the irrigation, I would like to touch this problematics from different approach, because I think this is a problem of the climate change. To fight climate change, we need to do some complex solutions. Complex solution is water management practices, for example, because we are having alternative seasons, rain season, dry season, and during the rain season, we have a lot of water which is just disappearing because we are not using it well. There are many practices from many experts in European Union, and I'm sure that there would be even a funding for it. We are just searching for the opportunities to work with counties and with the federal government to implement such projects. So in case you will be interested, I'm here to talk about it later on. Thank you.
We had 2 questions, at least we could see. There was the lady here, and I see Peter. Ooh, there are so many. Anyway, we'll try to get down to those 5, yeah. Ladies first. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. John Joe.
think I'm loud enough.
Yeah.
Thank you. So my question is to Luca. Within the agriculture space, we have massive post-harvest losses, challenges. So, and probably if you could just comment and tell us from your wealth of experience from FAO, you know, how do we tackle this massive challenge of post-harvest? Thank you.
Thank you. Then we had two there.
My name is Data. We have a daughter company, Biofertilizer Africa, and what we want to do is we want to implement organic fertilizer, and what we see here in Africa is a huge lack of organic matter in the soil. And no matter if we use, for instance, chemical you need a very high content of organic matter if you not should lose it to the soil and just get it out, just washed out in the rivers. You need a high organic matter, and you need to look much more into biocircular solutions.
Okay, thank you. And remember to ask the question if you have somebody ask directly.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I think my question is more on extension services. I think it's more directed to the engineer. Extension services have been provided in the past, and it's something that was very instrumental for smallholders. It was something that used to give them the knowledge and the skills that they need, and it has been lacking for the past. So is there an initiative from the government to start to introduce, or are they working on providing these extension services to smallholders? Because the NGO and the private sector has taken up that, but there is still a bit that's missing that the government can do.
Okay, thank you. There was one there. I think that will be our last question, yeah? Or you have, okay, you'll be the last one. You ready?
Thank you. My question is to engineer, and it's regarding your opening remarks, which were very good. You talked about the challenges in agriculture, and you talked about cost of inputs. You talked about rain-fed agriculture being an issue post-harvest. And I think the question that this brings is about competitiveness as a country. If you look at agriculture compared regionally within Kenya, we seem to be slowly getting into being an importer of things we used to produce. The question is, what's the government doing about the cost of inputs? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Josiah Sianda. I work for the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, KEPHIS. I want to appreciate the recognition of KEPHIS in its role to facilitate trade, and especially in the area of regulatory. My question goes to the European Union. As a regulator and as an intermediary between the grower, the producer, and the market and the importing country, we find that constantly they are changing rules, regulation, requirements, which in some cases the grower has to quickly transit into that. And in particular, I want to point towards a Green Deal. And in a Green Deal, there is the grower, the things that the grower has supposed to do so that they can have their product accepted within the European market. And some of the requirements are not really known by the grower, but they are passed on from the importer so that the grower can implement. What is the EU doing to educate and create awareness to the grower in Kenya and to facilitate and help them to quickly adopt the new changes? And are there incentives in terms of support grants that can help the grower in Kenya to uptake these kind of changes so that we can remain competitive. These are the challenges that we find as we try to implement the regulations. You find that the grower is experiencing difficulties, and it causes a lot of non-compliances. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'll start with you again, engineer. They seem to like you a lot. They have a lot of questions for you.
Thank you, thank you. We are the father and mother of agriculture in this country. So it's our pleasure, and thank you for the questions that have been raised. I think it is very well thought out, and it shows to us that we are not the only player in agriculture. We work with stakeholders in private sector and so on, because agriculture belongs to all of us. So I want to respond to something on extension. Yes, it is true that agricultural extension has been diminishing, unlike before, and I think this is because of the factors that are obviously known. The competition for the scarce resource has resulted in government not able to employ the farmers, the extension officers, as it used to be. However, the environment also has changed and is evolving, and we must make use of the opportunities that arise. One is at the private sector. I think Elgon Fertilizer, for example, is one of the private sector that's involved in some form of extension, although they are specific to their product, but to us that's a plus, because if you tell a farmer how much fertilizer to put and which type of fertilizer, that solves one of the extension issue. So we are having the private sector being part and parcel of the extension system in Kenya, and that's being promoted by the minister and appreciated. We also have e-extension. I think my colleague from Calro has alluded to the fact, and I think it was also said earlier, there's a lot of online extension apps that can be available depending on the enterprise. We are also going to that direction, whereby we are promoting the use of e-extension that's enterprise specific. There is also something that we are calling farmer field school, farmer to farmer extension. Among our farming community, there are those that are innovators and there are those that are somewhere there. We promote that, and I think some farmers have found it good to be charging a small fee to ensure that as they give the message to their colleagues, they are also remunerated in a way. I think this is an area that's being promoted, and quality control is being put in place. So that is how we are trying to address the challenges that we have said about inputs. I think it had been answered to some extent earlier, but we say that we want to see issues of fertilizer. Which fertilizer can we use, how much, and so on. And one of it is also the soil map that I told you earlier. I'm happy Calro is in the house. They are part of the team. Elgon Fertilizer is there. They are part of the team that are looking at the whole map of Kenya to ensure that we get the right fertilizer. The opportunities for organic fertilizer is also there. The issue of tax, the ministry is looking at the tax in agricultural subsector, and we hope may not be so much, but somehow it will bring down. Then the biggest issue in the house, the elephant in the house, is about productivity. This morning, I hosted members from Cereal Growers Association of Kenya, and they told me one of their farmer in Nakuru has he gets about 40 bags of maize, 90 kilogram bags of maize per acre, while in many maize producing areas, you get between 8 and 12. So productivity is an issue that if farmers can use available technology and knowledge to ensure that you increase productivity, the cost of input can be managed to some extent. And then we also say that because sometimes some of these things are external, we are promoting the growing of value addition, value addition to crop products, also high value crops, especially where there's ready market. That can be a substitute to the low ones to cushion the high cost of that. And finally is, among others, is also mechanizing. If we mechanize agriculture, we are likely to bring down the cost of production to some extent.
Yeah.
We've run way over. So, I mean, this is absolutely the forum. It's wonderful to have everybody here together, use this platform to engage, and I'm sure our panelists, we just want to extend our huge gratitude for giving up the time and being so engaging and sharing your insights. And I hope that you will stay around so that people can chat with you further. And thank you to my co-moderator, Mushai. But I think, yes, we've already had people run out for a coffee.
So thank you very much also to the audience. And like we say, we hope we got a chance to talk about both the opportunities and the challenges that we face. And we hope that we can get more business together, because I think it's, especially in the challenges, the people who solve the challenges will become the next Ferrari drivers. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Thank you. Asante.